We're all taught that if you love a horse, you got to protect it, right? Keep it safe from, well, everything. And that just feels right, doesn't it? But what if I told you that instinct, that drive to protect, might actually be the very thing that's hurting them? It's a huge paradox, and that's exactly what we're going to dive into. So, this really forces us to ask a kind of tough question. When we wrap our horses up in what we call safety, who is it really for? Is it for them, or is it really for us, to make us feel better and calm our own fears? It's a heavy thought for sure, but it is at the absolute core of this whole discussion. Okay, so this tension, this is what we're calling the paradox of protection. It's this, really unsettling idea that the very things we do to shield them from harm might be causing a totally different, maybe even more subtle kind of damage. And it pretty much boils down to two completely different paths you can take. You've got control on one side, the idea of safety through management, through stables. And then on the other side, you've got trust. This is all about building resilience by giving them autonomy, by giving them freedom. All right, so let's dig into the science here. Let's talk about the science of confinement. We kind of just assume that all our management practices are making our horses healthier. But does the data actually back that up? I think you might be pretty surprised by what we're about to see. Okay, just look at this. It is absolutely staggering. We're talking up to 90% of stabled racehorses dealing with ulcers. Compare that to around 30% for free-range horses. I mean, that is a massive, massive gap. It completely blows up the whole idea that keeping a horse in a stall means it's healthier. And it's not just ulcers, not by a long shot. The evidence for chronic stress is just overwhelming. Get this, stalled horses are 5 to 10 times more likely to develop those stereotypic behaviors, like weaving or crib biting. And when you look at their hormones, it gets even clearer. Isolation makes their cortisol, that's the stress hormone, go way up. And at the same time, it crashes their oxytocin, the hormone they need for bonding. It's a double whammy. Wow, this quote, it just reframes everything, doesn't it? It makes you think. That horse you see standing quietly in its stall, maybe it's not peaceful. Maybe it's just given up. It suggests that what we see as calm might actually be something called learned helplessness. It's basically a total shutdown from being under so much stress for so long. And this is where you see that nature just has a totally different playbook. Out in a natural herd, things like small risks, little challenges, they aren't mistakes in the system. They are the system. It's exactly those little bumps and bruises that build real, long-term resilience. It's what strengthens their immune system. It's what makes them, well, them. So the science is pretty clear, right? But it also points to something deeper, more philosophical. Are we just kidding ourselves? Are we operating under this illusion of control? Is this whole idea of protection just a story we tell ourselves? The philosopher Martin Heidegger had a really interesting take on this. He warned that the second we start to manage a living thing, we risk turning it into just an object, a thing, a resource to be used. The moment a horse becomes something to be handled, we start to forget its being, its aliveness, its spirit. And this goes way back. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle had a word for this. It's telos. It's this beautiful idea that every single living being has its own built-in purpose, its own natural way of existing. And when we're constantly stepping in, constantly intervening, we might actually be getting in the way of that. We might be denying the horse its own nature. I think our whole welfare model today kind of falls into this really simple trap. Pain is bad, comfort is good. End of story. But that's just not how nature works, is it? Challenge, a little bit of hardship, that's the engine for growth. It's what makes things strong and adaptable. A life with zero adversity doesn't create peace. It creates fragility. Okay, so if this whole model of control is broken, then what's the alternative? Well, that brings us to a totally new way of thinking, the practice of trust. And this alternative has a name. It's a concept called neutral nature. Now, this is not about us playing God and trying to design some perfect artificial paradise for our horses. No, it's the total opposite. It's about what happens, what emerges, when we just stop. When we stop trying to force things, step back, and just trust what the land is already offering. And I really want to be clear here, this is not about neglect. This isn't just abandoning them and walking away. It's not doing nothing. It's actually a very active, very conscious choice. It's the choice to trust the intelligence that's already there in life itself, the intelligence in the land and the intelligence in the horse. So, if our job isn't to be the manager, then what is our role in all this? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because it requires a huge shift in how we behave. It's a shift away from doing, and a shift towards just paying attention. Yeah, our new role isn't to be a manager, setting up schedules and plans. And it's not to be an architect, trying to design the perfect world. Our role is just to be an observer. But being an observer isn't a passive thing at all. It's not about just sitting back and zoning out. It's actually a super deep form of connection. It means you're engaged, but you're not interfering. You're breathing with the land, you're noticing the tiny changes, and you're learning to get in sync with the natural rhythm of the herd. So why? Why do we have this incredible urge to manage and control everything? Well, it really all comes down to one thing: fear. We're afraid of injury, we're afraid of loss, we're afraid of chaos. But here's the kicker. Any action that starts from a place of fear will always turn into an act of control. And that leads us to this really powerful, kind of sobering thought. Sometimes the things we do with the absolute best intentions, if they come from that need to control, they can actually become a form of violence, even when it looks like kindness on the outside. So we're going to end right back where we started, with a question for you to think about. We've looked at the science, we've touched on the philosophy, and now we're left with this. Maybe real love isn't about building a bubble around a horse to protect it from every little thing. Maybe true love is about having the courage, the trust, to let them live their own life.